Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. Now before we get started, I am going to have a non-spoiler version of the video and a spoiler version of the video. Now the non-spoilery one will just have the star review and the general non-spoilery feelings I had. And of course the spoilery will have either a rant or praise or just more in-depth assessment, if I can remember it. Now, if you do not wish to be spoiled about any of these books, this is the video for you. And if you are open to spoilers, you love hearing the rants and the gossip, this is the one for you. The one you are currently on is the spoiler version. We're here to get the goss. If you are not here for the one you have clicked on, you can segue to the other one. So today I bring you the acclaimed mid-year book wrap-up. Now this is especially special because I haven't done any monthly wrap-ups this year, so nobody knows what I've been reading except for, I think, 2 reading vlogs. For now, we are going to go through every single one, and don't worry, it's not going to be too long because there are only 22 books. If you can hear any machinery sounds, our neighbours are doing something. But I think we should be right. But just in case. We'll be mostly recapping books, but I will try to remember some of the shows I've watched, and then we'll do a brief, my favourite K-pop songs of this first semester, half a year. It has gone by far too fast, but I feel like my booktube side of me has not caught up to the rest. But it's realistic, so if you come here for realism, you'll get it. So why don't we just dive on in? I have Storygraph here, which will tell me all the books I've read so far. And we actually started off the year really strong with The Prince's Bargain, which is actually book 3 of the Elves of Lesser series by K.M. Shea. I've actually got it right here. And it was a 5-star. Absolutely loved it. When going into it, I wasn't sure about it. The idea of it wasn't as exciting as the other ones. Ended up my favourite one. And isn't that how books work sometimes? So yes, first up was The Prince's Bargain by K.M. Shea. And this is the 3rd book of the series. So it follows Prince Arvel and then a translator, Myth. And she is a translator in training, and they end up getting together to translate some stuff. And it's the last book in the series. So there's a lot of things being wrapped up in the end. And it was a 5-star. The characters were great. We had some side characters. Their tales got wrapped up. And it's just fun. There is no spice in this. In most of the books I read, there will be 0 spice. I thought this one was going to be more boring because I assumed that Prince Arvel, being the more studious, bookish prince, rather than the other main characters of the previous 2, were more the fighting type. They were like the gruff military men. And in this one, he's just the bookish prince. And also, it was about the translator, Myth. I'll admit I wasn't really interested in the translation work. Okay, sue me. But in this, it actually handled it really well. There was no boredom. It was excellent. It gave bookish library vibes, but also wasn't slow in any way. So I absolutely loved that. Also, our guardsmen, our 3 little guardsmen, got their romances except for one. Where is he? Let me find him. Paul Grigg, I think it is. does not have his love match, and I am so saddened. There might be hints towards one, but not really. And poor Greg, my baby boy. The three captains really help out by getting in disguise and going on missions, and they act as old men at one point, and it is the most hilarious banter and like happenings I have ever watched. They were just pretending to be really old scholars that didn't have all their wits about them, and it was truly hilarious. I cannot recommend this series enough. It is just good, wholesome fun. Then, next up, we have Fierce Heart, which I rated a 4.5. And so, Fierce Heart is by Tara Grace, and it is a Elven Alliance book. In fact, it is the first book in the series. And Fierce Heart is about a human princess who marries an elf prince so that their two warring kingdoms do not destroy each other. Because currently the trolls to the north are a really big problem, and neither of them want to deal with the trolls and fight each other at the same time. So they create this alliance through a marriage alliance. And so our main character, Essie, is the human princess, and it's all in her point of view. And she marries Lasonish, which he actually has a different name, but I can't think of it right now. Yes, I gave her a 4.5. There were some bits that, I don't know, I found cringe, but most people would just see it as romantic. But I was like, oof. Because it's the first book in the series, it has a lot of starting plots. The different wars and background and that sort of thing. And then our main couple figuring out what to do. If there is one thing to note about this series, is Elven shampoo and conditioner, scrub-a-dub-dub, and skincare. My goodness, the elves, shampoo and conditioner and skincare. No wonder they live for so long. I think Tara mentions shampoo and conditioner so much throughout this series. It's almost like she's trying to sell you Elven shampoo and conditioner, but it is not an actual product that you can buy. But I'm sold. I would buy it. But the fact that it is not real, yet we have so much about the Elven shampoo and conditioner. Now, Essie is really cute. Essie is just a bubbly, sort of positive thing. Sometimes I feel she's a little over positive, but it helps in the scenario they're in. And Lasonish, or Farandel, he is not your typical prince. So he's got a lot of backstory going on. A lot of backstory. And eventually you do find out bits and pieces, but he's very reserved, and he says a lot of just years. And my brother gave him a Russian sort of accent when he was reading it to me, so all I can think of now is whenever he says his one word, years, it's just like a thick Russian accent going, years, years, or years. You know, just his dialogue can be summed up as years. That's it. Essie will go on a long rant, and all Farandel will say is years. He does not say much at all. He's a little bewildered by how happy it is. It's like the sunshine, grumpy sunshine dynamic. Very much that dynamic in this. The first book does sort of just introduce a plot line. It hasn't wrapped anything up. I don't love the elves. I'm going to be honest. I don't like their sort of standoffish nature. I know we'll probably get some human interaction in the next books, but at the moment the elves' attitude is just a bit... Which I know is how prejudice and, you know, all that works, but I do not enjoy prejudice. Like, I am very much a person that's like, just judge the person by the person, not from what their people do, or like, I flipping hate prejudice in books. Or people acting like they know the person when they really have no clue at all. I just hate that. So that is probably one negative thing about the series. Then I finished Little House on the Prairie with Dad. Laura Ingalls Wilder, Little House on the Prairie, from the Little House on the Prairie series. And it was a 2.5 star. I didn't really love it. So Little House on the Prairie is about Laura Ingalls with her family. She is very young, and they travel from Wisconsin to Kansas, and they set up their house and everything else by a creek and on the plains, and it's a prairie, surprisingly enough. And it's just about general life. I liked some bits, just the family stuff, but the handling of where they were is not so much. Not necessarily by Pa and Laura, but everyone around them are very racist towards the natives. As with a lot of history, I'm sure it's accurate for the time, but it is very cringe looking back at it. Now, the next 7 books I do actually have a reading vlog for. It was my Detective Penguin series, which I really enjoyed doing. But for the quick rundown, Enid Blyton's book 1 of the 5 Find Outers series, The Mystery of the Burnt Cottage. And I gave it a 4 stars. Now, to hear my full thoughts on that, I would recommend going to see the video because I've forgotten a lot of stuff. The Mystery of the Burnt Cottage is about a group of children that go to investigate why this hut of this man's house burnt down. And they're going against Mr. Goon, who is the local Bobby. It's just a bit of fun. The crimes take place, a lot happens, and I still love Frederick Algernon Trotterville. Or Trotville. But it is a 4 stars. Yay. Then we have The Swamp Robber by Paul Hutchins. Again, I made some observances for that one as well in this video with spoilers. It's the book that got me into reading, and it didn't hit the same now that I'm older. But it was still a good book. It just wasn't quite the same. I gave it a 3.5 star. Good average score. And again, I'm very concerned about the police of the area shooting innocent people and not checking the area for clues, and the old man that was tied up in the house and going to die. I'm very concerned about them. The Secret 7 by Enid Blyton, and it is the first book in the Secret 7 series. And again, crime takes place by the children. So it is about a secret club of kids that discover a mysterious happenings in the night and some really suspicious men and their trailer of some sort holding something that's making sounds, sneaking into a house late at night. So they go on their mission. Spoilers, it is a horse. These men have stolen, horse-napped a famous racehorse, and they're hiding it in this old man's house. They've painted him a different colour, dyed his poor hair, and plan on sneaking him out and therefore selling him, etc., etc. And because of these nosy little kids, they managed to stop it from going on. And that's about it. It was very, very quick. They did trespass and break in and all manner of crimes, as these teen detectives we did for Discover do. It comes with the territory, it seems. And yeah, so it was a 3.5 star book. Again, average. Next up was 5 on a Treasure Island, and it was a 3-star book. I listened to the audio. It was very average. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I just felt nothing really. So it's about these 3 siblings that go to visit their aunt and uncle and cousin, and the cousin owns an island, and a shipwreck goes onto it, and they discover many different things. And those things are a secret map, which the uncle is like, yeah, well, I should sell this for money. Yes. And I should definitely let these bad guys try and find all the treasure that's obviously on the island. Yes. Not suspicious at all. Yes, definitely should sell this map for a bit of money instead of finding the motherload of gold on the island. So annoying. He has 0 redeeming features. They try to redeem him a bit. 0. Zilch. Nada. I dislike the man immensely. But it is a kid's book, so I understand they can't really be out here making the most in-depth characters, but it was still an interesting time. Again, I reviewed it in the video, so you can go click on that if you want more in-depth craziness. And then next I read Trixie Belden and the Secret of the Mansion. It was book 1 in the Trixie Belden series by Julie Campbell, and I gave it a 4.5 star. I love Trixie Belden. I don't know if you can see it, but down here I actually have a collection. I love that series. And rereading this first one, chef's kiss. I love it. I love the characters. I must admit, when I first started the book, Trixie was not winning me over. I don't know what it was when I first started reading it on one day. I just was like, how did I like this? Like, she's so annoying. But then I came back to it later, and that vibe was gone completely. So I must have just been in the wrong mood that day. I must have just somewhere my head just wasn't in the right place. Again, I read it in this one. I think there is a spoiler section. It is about Trixie Belden, and she has a new neighbour moving in up the hill. And that neighbour is Honey Wheeler, and she is the sweetest girl around. But Honey isn't used to, country life, but she's really excited for it. So Trixie and Honey, they become fast friends. But at the same time, another neighbour, who is an old man, he collapses, and Trixie's father finds him and takes him to hospital. But meanwhile, Trixie and Honey decide to do a little snooping around the old mansion he lived in, because there is a tale that he had a hidden fortune. But everyone's like, it is a junk pile, that mansion. It is run down and everything. And there they discover Jim, a runaway. And Jim is the greatest character on earth. I love Jim. Always have. He was my first book boyfriend, or book crush, I suppose. I always thought him and Nancy, wrong series, him and Trixie belonged together, and that will be canon in my head forever. It's my head canon, and it is going to stay that way forever. But I love and adore Jim. That trio of friends, and then of course Bobby, the younger brother, who pops up a lot too, are just beautiful. I love the dynamics of the group and how much they care. It really is like a found friend group, and I always wanted a found friend group like that, so it was excellent. The mystery was less of a mystery and more of a treasure hunt, but they did find some money for good old Jimmy, and he managed to escape from his abusive stepfather with its money. But they also discovered that he actually could have been in a lot more money, and we're all on the adopt Jim train. We're all in it. even if you don't know Jim, you should all be part of the We Want to Adopt Jim gang, because everyone in the book, and myself included, all wanted to adopt Jim. But that's only book 1, and the tale is not complete, because Jim is on the run, and Trixie and Honey are left behind, knowing that Jim is in fact an heir, and stuff could happen. So I'm looking forward to reading on in the series, but that was it. So that was Trixie Belden and the Secret of the Mansion, a 4.5 star. Yes. And then next I read The Hidden Staircase, a Nancy Drew mystery story. And it is technically book 2 because I couldn't find book 1. So book 2 it was. And it is by Carolyn Keene. And I gave it a 4.5 star. And I actually really enjoyed it. I also loved that she was about the only teen/child detective that actually followed the law. It was a miracle, and I was so happy about it. I always thought Nancy was like the rule bender kind of detective, but in these books, no. She follows the law to the T, and it's amazing. In this story, she has several things going on. One is mainly with her father, because of a railway being built. And then there's another one where these poor little old ladies are getting haunted in their house. And they're like, oh, what are all these sounds and creaks and movements happening? Like, what is happening? Could it be a ghost? It wasn't a ghost. Something had gone wrong with the land ownership, and this man, they needed to confirm with him that he had in fact signed these documents to give the land over to the railroad. But he was missing. And that missing man was in fact in this house with these old ladies, because the bad guy who was sort of had a hand in all of this wanted the house and the land it was on. And so he sent this other bloke who had to go into hiding to this house to spook the old ladies into selling up. There was a whole heap of hidden passages that ran from one mansion to this other mansion up the hill, and this man was spooking the old ladies. Meanwhile, Carson, Nancy's dad, also went missing, but we found him. We found him down the thing. It's okay. He's back. He's safe. And finally, part of that video was Holly Jackson's A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I gave it 2 stars. Ravi Singh. He is literally the only reason. That and some of the writing techniques used. But other than that, it was not the book for me. It really wasn't the book for me. It is about, give me a sec, Pippa Fitz-Amobi, and she is doing a school project, and that involves investigating this cold case that's not really a cold case because the dumb police have wrapped it up, blaming it on Ravi Singh's brother, who was found dead in the forest. Pippa isn't convinced, but she's about the only person in town that isn't convinced that Ravi Singh's brother did it. It is said that Sal Singh murdered his girlfriend at the time, and everyone just assumes he did it because he left the house and was found dead in the woods. And they were like, well, he obviously did it and felt guilty. And Pippa doesn't think so. And neither does, obviously, Sal's brother, Ravi. They go on this big, convoluted mission to prove that Sal didn't murder this random girl. And spoilers, he didn't. He didn't. In fact, he was murdered. It was all pinned on him. The actual person who murdered the girl was her own sister. Pippa jumps from suspect to suspect like it's like hopscotch, she jumps from one person to another in her suspects. She breaks the law multiple times. She does drugs. She impersonates people. She does so many crimes that I, in fact, believe that she is the bad guy of this book series. She, along with the actual murderers, are actually bad guys and need to go to prison. I go on a full rant in the video with spoilers, so I would click through for a more in-depth remembrance. But yeah, Ravi Singh is a wonderful lad and the only redeeming character in this entire thing. Also, the dog dies. So if that tells you it's a horrible book, it's a horrible book. I do not like it. So yes, Holly Jackson's A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. She is not a good girl at all. And in fact, she gets her 2 stars. A begrudging 2 stars. Alright, now we move on from the one that had all of that in the video. And we move on to the next ones, which were all oldies. Old favourites. So I started with Charley by Joan G. Robinson. And I gave it a 4 stars. Now, it is about a girl who is being looked after by her aunt while her mum's away. And she's got a brother, but she's sent off to stay with a different aunt. While the brother and the aunt 1 and the brother go off to the sea to get him some air because he was hurt or something. And so she goes to stay with Aunt 2. Which I think is more of a family friend than an aunt, but we'll call her Aunt 2. So she arrives in the village to find that Aunt 2 isn't there. She's not home. And so Charley decides to make the most of it and use the time to be a runaway and camp out and live her independent life because she feels a little abandoned by literally everyone. And that is fair enough. And it's like a big thing about whether she really will last out in the wilderness of this little village and the forest area, or whether she will end up going home. And spoilers, she does go home. But it's after an adventure. Wow. She makes her money last, and she also scavenges around for food. And I just felt so sorry for her because literally no one cared. No one cared at all. And even when she was found, there was no feeling of like, yes, she is actually loved and they are suitably upset and loving of this beloved lass. It's very lackluster. I didn't feel any like, yes, her runaway was kind of worth it in a way. And poor Charley just goes back with the aunt. The aunt says something which I think is meant to be like a bit of a thing, but it's more like Charley is like, my aunt has a really tough time, so I should be nice to her. But the fact that literally no one cared about her being run away or almost dying. I did give it 4 stars because I love while she's run away. But I hate the other people in the book. I despise them. Next up, I read 8 Cousins by Louisa May Alcott. And I gave it a 4 stars. And so 8 Cousins follows a young girl whose father has died, and she goes to live on Ant Hill, where all these different aunts live. And she's rather sickly and depressed, but soon her uncle, who is going to be her guardian, comes to liven up her life a bit, along with, as in the title, 8 cousins, and they're all boys, and she is the only female cousin in the family, so she gets doted on and cared for. And yes, just a bunch of adventures with her uncle, now guardian, and all the 8 cousins. So Uncle Alec is her guardian, and he comes in with all these new ideas like exercise and fresh air. What? That is the reaction of Rose and some of the aunts. What? Anyway, along with the rambunctious squad of boy cousins, she slowly does exercise and get fresh air and learns some valuable lessons along the way. The 8 cousins are a mixed pack, and they really do end up caring for their cousin. In the beginning, they were like, a girl cousin, that's gonna be so boring. What the heck? But they eventually come around, and they're all a big squad, and yeah, pretty much it's just her healing from her depression and physical state after the loss of her father, and learning to be part of a family again. Also, she befriends a maid, so she adopts this maid, and so the maid becomes sort of part of her family dynamic, like a big sister, really. And like some of the time the comparisons between like healthy and unhealthy, and Uncle Alec being like, oh, Phoebe, which is the maid's name, is like, so like that's the goal kind of thing. And I'm like, every girl is different, every person's different, so I'm not sure how sound some of that advice is, but it did boosted our Rose into a more lively appearance and life. Then we got into What Katy Did, which is part of the Car Family series. So there you go. I didn't even know that. I just called it the What Katy Did series. And it is by Suzanne Coolidge. And I gave it a 4 stars. In What Katy Did, we follow Katy Carr and her siblings. And Katy is known to be a bit mischievous, but not evilly so. She just is always getting into scrapes and likes a bit of fun, but sometimes that fun goes too far and she ends up being a bit clumsy and breaking something. Or she, enlivens the crowd into a lively, rowdy bunch, but it's at school, and the school mom is not highly impressed by that. And she's with her aunt, again, with these sort of overbearing aunts. Her aunt doesn't seem to really like Katy. Katy does not necessarily like the aunt. But she goes against orders and she swings on this swing despite being ordered not to by the aunt. The aunt didn't just explain was that the swing was in fact partially broken. Now if the aunt had just, spoken to these kids like they actually had brains, then Katy would not have swung on this swing and then fallen off due to a breakage and hurt herself. And then our beloved Katy is in bed. She becomes an invalid. And I actually really related to some of the themes. I have a chronic illness, so I can relate to some of the, thoughts or feelings of Katy in it. Some of the siblings are really cute too. And then there's other little tales and whatnot going on. And of course, in the end, she does end up healed. And she's just a young girl. She's like 12 or something. So it was very tough for a usually athletic, rambunctious girl. Also in there, there's the cousin who is just a perfect angel child, woman. And I've decided I just do not necessarily vibe with the angelic angel childs. Like a Mary in Laura Ingalls series, this cousin, and What Katy Did. I don't vibe with the angel child. And what's with that? Because I am obviously angelic. I was myself an angel child. So that's What Katy Did. 4 stars. Next 8 books are all part of the same series by Enid Blyton, and that is the Adventure series. So this series follows 4 children and usually a detective uncle, father, FBI agent man called Bill. Bill shows up multiple times, so he would probably be a secondary main character. Anyway, it follows these 4 kids through many different adventures that they just seem to stumble upon, or the adventure stumbles upon them. Either way, Philip, Jack, Diana, and Lucy-Anne. Philip and Diana are siblings, and then Jack and Lucy-Anne are also siblings, but they are otherwise unrelated to the 2 siblings. But they soon are almost related when Jack and Lucy-Anne get pretty much adopted by Philip and Diana's mother. And spoilers, eventually Bill. Because Bill marries Philip and Diana's mother. And would you believe? Book 1, Philip is at boarding school and Jack and his sister Lucy-Anne are there as well. But Lucy-Anne and Jack do not want to go back to their uncle because their uncle is old and annoying and doesn't take care of them and is constantly yelling at them. So Philip's like, hey, let me just kidnap you and take you home with me for the school holidays. And that is just what they do. So they troop off to Philip's family, and Philip's aunt is a little concerned, but soon comes around due to money. She gets money out of it. And meanwhile, their uncle is a miserly, their uncle is constantly researching. He knows nothing outside his own research and his own study. And there's also a groundskeeper, maintenance man as well. And while they're there, they notice some happenings in an island across the way, and they also stumble across a bird watcher and they slowly befriend this bird watcher, and then they find out what is really going on in this island across the way. And what's really going on is that the bad guys, including the groundskeeper maintenance man, are printing money in the mines of this island. And the birdwatcher isn't a birdwatcher. He's actually a government man, and he is trying to track down these money launderers. And his name is Bill. They manage to thwart the money plans and capture the bad guys through a big rigmarole of things. But they are sneaky kids. They've got some brain to them, and they're constantly outwitting the groundskeeper maintenance man. So I found that really fun. Of course, I was like, yes. In the next book, we have the Circus of Adventure, and Philip and Diana's mother, who was ill, is now better and has all 4 children under her care. And while they're at this little cottage, they see a castle up the hill, and they're like, that looks great. And Jack is like, that's a great place for birds, because Jack is really into birds. He adores birds. In fact, birds are his life. He, in fact, has a pet cockatoo. Sorry, parrot. That looks like a cockatoo because it's white with a yellow crest. And I'm like, that is a cockatoo. And so due to the bird watching, again, they go up to the castle, and some strange happenings are happening at the castle, of course, because adventure goes wherever these kids are. They do find out that some men are there and they're trying to steal inventions or something. I don't know the specifics. They got held captive by the bad guys, but if they did manage to escape, of course, with the help of, who would you believe? Bill! Bill appears again. Good old Bill. And next up we have the Valley of Adventure. Now in the Valley of Adventure, the children go on a trip with Bill. Or at least they're meant to. Instead, they accidentally hop in the wrong plane and end up in a abandoned valley and trying not to be seen by the two bad guys that had flown the plane and kidnapped them unknowingly. There's a lot of strange happenings in the valley. These men being out there for no apparent reason, and just burnt out huts and everything. And the kids are like, why are these guys here? And how do we get home? Because that's a big important part. And they discover the men are there to try and find this hidden area of like golden statues and artwork that was hidden away before or during the war. And so all these buildings and everything had been destroyed during the war, which had finished only shortly before. But of course the children are the ones who stumble across the secret valley, secret rooms, with all of these artworks and things, as well as an old couple that have been hidden away there for literal years and have no idea what's going on outside. They've just been told that someone will come and collect them when the war is over, and the war has been over. But because Bill is out there trying to figure out where the heck their kids are, they do manage to escape from the valley, and the artworks are given to the correct people. Next up, it was the Sea of Adventure, where they go with Bill this time. Now, Bill needs to hide out. He's been known to some bad guys and he has to hide away for a bit. So he's like, you know what, I will pretend to be, again, a bird watcher, and we will go to the puffin colonies. And the kids all go with him on the boat. And they go to adventure and they're like, this will be fun. Puffins, right? Unfortunately, the people that Bill is meant to be hiding from happen to be in the Puffin Isle, gathering guns and stuff. Rather than hiding from them, he just ends up straight at the Puffin colony, where the bad guys are. Bill gets captured, and so the kids have to try and figure out how to get Bill back and actually get off the island because they're stranded there for a while. Next we have the mountain adventure, where their mother is like, okay, we do not need another adventure. But hey Bill, let's take them up these mountains and we can have some donkey rides and camp, and it will be so far away from adventure they will never be able to get into an adventure because we'll be right there. We'll keep them out of trouble. As is with these kids, trouble finds them. Sure enough, poor mother sprains her ankle, and Bill has to look after her and take her down to the hospital. And so the kids are just sent off on their donkeys up the mountain, you know, with a guide, a singular guide. And I don't know what they were thinking, because of course the kids stumbled across an evil king's lair. You heard that right. A literal king has set up in this big mountain, hollowed it out with like different things going on. They're trying to make flying contraptions, but rather than just be like test it in usual ways, each version they make, they just push out a parachuter and be like, here, try it out, see if it works. And I'm like, there are better ways than pushing a man out of a plane to plummet to his death if it doesn't work. Anyway, the kids are abandoned up there by their guide, and they have no way to know where to go back home. So they're trapped up here with hounds and mysterious mountain men, etc., etc. Bill manages to find them after they are captured by this evil king, inventor king, and his cronies, and Bill comes and saves them. And it's all okay. But next is the Ship of Adventure. And guess what? Mother is fed up with these kids always having an adventure. She's like, kids, you always seem to find something. You find some way of getting into trouble. So we're going to go on a cruise. That's right, we're not going to go to any valleys or seasides or islands or castles. No, we're going to be stuck on a cruise ship where absolutely nothing can happen, because I will be right there. I will be watching you like a hawk. I will never leave your side. The kids find a little ship, and it has a map. A map to a long lost treasure. They do not reveal to their mother that they've stumbled across a treasure map. No, they try to figure out a way for them to find the treasure. Our beloved mother kept saying, Bill is not coming because Bill gets in as much trouble as you guys. I refuse to allow Bill to go on another adventure with you. Bill shows up, and Bill decides, while the cruise ship is broken, to take them to this island just to look around, just to have a little squiz. Nothing bad could possibly happen. Wrong. Obviously, everything goes wrong. And they are abandoned on this island where the treasure is, and with the bad guy who is trying to search for the treasure and has been buying out islands all around. They also have this young lad, Lucien, and he is a little annoying, but they really bag out poor Lucien. Lucien did nothing wrong. He just has a really bad uncle, okay? And we all have a bad uncle. Or at least in this world, obviously, because, like, Philip and Diana had a bad uncle, and Jack and Lucien had a bad uncle. So I feel like bad uncles sort of run in this universe, and so therefore, poor Lucien having a bad uncle really kind of works out. It runs with the theming. Anyway, so they end up captured, they escape, they manage to find out the bad guy was actually a bad guy, and of course, everything works out. But yes, the basic plot is Mum's like, no adventures for you, and they end up stumbling across an adventure, a treasure map, and they get into trouble and adventure. With Bill, who was banned from the trip. Book 7, The Circus of Adventure. Now, Bill is now married to the mother at the end of the last book. Now, Bill and mother and the kids have a visitor who is a bit full of himself. He's a bit pompous, and the kids are like, who is this guy? And why do we have to hang out? But Mum's like, well, if you don't want to hang out with Giuseppe or whatever his name is, Bill can't come on this holiday either. And they're like, oh, we really like Bill. All right, fine. We'll put up with him. Stuff happens, and they end up kidnapped. And most of the book is actually focused on Jack. There's no circus involved, and that's about all I can say. I think the rest is all spoilers. But for those who want spoilers, then this young lad is actually a prince of this country, and his uncle is currently in power, but there are people who want to put the kid in power so they can manipulate him and run the country themselves. The only thing is they need the kid. So, of course, the bad guys come and they kidnap the kid, but they also decide to take the other kids because they're witnesses, and the British government will not retaliate if there's hostages. So they take Philip, Diana, Lucien, but not Jack. Jack is out, you guessed it, bird watching, and so he does not get kidnapped, but he does go along with them. He sneaks in and manages to fly to this new country along with the rest of them. But somewhere along the way they do get separated. And Jack joins a circus because he's got his talking parrot, Kiki. And he fits right in. And actually most of the book actually follows just Jack trying to find his way to this castle where his sister and family are now kept. He manages to unkidnap the kids and they all join in this circus. And Bill eventually comes and helps them out after they've escaped. And the uncle, who was also kidnapped, the king uncle, was kidnapped. He's actually a good uncle, very rare in these books. And he was kidnapped, but of course Bill and Jack managed to unkidnap him. And everything works out. Now, unfortunately, the version I read was the old version. And they put oil all over their faces and stuff. And I don't know whether it's just a brown oil to make them tan, like a tanning lotion, or if it's worse. I don't know whether that's in the newer version of the book, so I unfortunately had an old copy. Anyway, so that was the Circus of Adventure, 4 stars. And finally, I finished the series with the River of Adventure, where they go to Syria, I think it is, to have a holiday. A good old holiday, just to relax. Nothing wrong going there, except they're not, because Bill is actually tasked with going there to investigate just a really suspicious man, and the kids and that are his cover. So this time, rather than being like, we cannot get into trouble, we cannot get into an adventure, Bill is literally like, let's all just get into an adventure. And that's what they do. Of course they stumble across the bad guy, and they end up saving Bill, who gets taken along with the mother and captured. And the kids manage to find the ruins and the gold and everything that the bad guy was, of course, trying to find. Because they always do. They always stumble across the treasure. They're not purposely looking for it most of the time, except for in the Ship of Adventure. And they just sort of stumble in. They just happen to find it. Anyway, and then they manage to escape the bad guy and save their parents. And that's about it. That's happily ever after. That's done. The series is done. Thank goodness. That was that series. Overall, probably a 4 stars series. There were some weird bits which I think were corrected in later versions. But yeah, it was crazy. Wild ride. And then I also read Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries, which I will go into in a second, but I really need a break. I need a drink, so I'll be right back. Now we're up to our final book. The final one. Finally, we have Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries, which I gave a 3.5 stars. And I think I'm keeping with that rating. Now, in Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries, we follow Emily Wilde, who goes to a certain place in winter to note down the fairies of the area and make this encyclopedia of fairies, obviously. She is joined by Wendell Bambleby. He brings these 2 students, but the 2 students end up very quickly abandoning him. And throughout the book, she, of course, is trying to figure out the mystery of the area, the mystery of the fairies of the area, along with trying to figure out a few other things by interacting with the villagers of the area. And that's about it. It is meant to be a cozier fantasy, and I suppose it is, but it's got definitely some action and some things happening along the way, for sure. Now let's go through, get comfy. Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Fairy. First up, we have Emily Wilde, who is meant to be socially awkward, but I did not find her socially awkward. I mean, she didn't love being around people, but I wouldn't call that socially awkward. I would call that being an introvert or hermitude. And yeah, constantly says she's awkward with people, and people react awkwardly to her, but I do not think it's her fault. I think it's the people's fault. In fact, I would go so far as to say it's the other people's problems. And she loves research. But the part I found confusing was, why is she a researcher but can't light a fire. Like, she's meant to be really good at her job, but at the same time, she doesn't know how to live life. And I was so confused by that because she's meant to have done other research. Has she never left the house? Does she do it all from houses, like motels? At one point when she's just arrived, she has no fire. It's winter, so it's cold. She can't figure out how to flip and light a fire. And she's like, got no food. And she just says, well, I guess this is how I die. R.I.P. But then along comes the villagers. Now the villagers, I am so done with the villagers. The villagers are so dumb. Like, the whole idea that Emily didn't really want to rely on people too much. So then they start abusing her because she said, oh, I don't really need your help right now. And then they're like, okay, no food for you, no help for you. We are literally going to abandon you. We will hate you. We will not talk to you. We will not explain why we're angry either. And that's meant to be on her. And I'm like, no, that's entirely on the village. The village are idiots. The head village lady, stupid. I was bewildered. I was like, how is this Emily's fault? It isn't. Like, who goes to a place and he's like, here, have a cup of tea. And you're like, don't really feel like tea right now. And they're like, bet. All right, you will not get bread or water. You will starve. Oh, you do not want this hand warmer I just gave you? All right. Freeze. Or, in this case, I enter a tavern. I'm like, oh, the menu looks good. Let me get some food. Now, let me pay for my food. They're like, what? Sorry, you what? You want to pay for your food? And you're like, yep. Ready to pay for my meal that anywhere else I would definitely have to pay for. And they're like, oh, you're ostracized now. We all hate you. I'm like, what? Sorry, no, I'm just trying to pay for me with my meal. So, how dare you? How dare you belittle our generosity? They are the unsociable ones. And I guess it's fine for them to run by a different social construct, but you can't expect a stranger to come in and just be like, yes, here, you do not pay for your meal, okay? Until you are now ostracized and have to pay exorbitant amounts for your food. Anyway, along comes Wendell Bumblebee with his 2 assistants in tow. And he's like, wow, your house is flipping freezing. It's not very nice here. Where's the food? And she's like, oh, I'm getting ostracized by the people. I don't have anything. I'm relying on this fey creature to give me bread. And he's like, oh, it sucks here. He wins over the people. Wendell is really sociable. And he's is actually a fey prince that's been kicked out. Fey king that's been kicked out of his country. But he's like wins people over really quickly. But I compare him to Book Hal. 100% Book Hal. Because he is a bit of a womanizer, but secretly likes Emily the whole time, which is just really weird. Because obviously he doesn't, because he's bedding other village folk. He doesn't explain anything. He just is like a bit blasé. He'll go out sometimes, he'll go do a research maybe, and then he'll come back, and he doesn't really like paperwork. He looks at Emily and he's like, oh. Well, I'm going to the village to do a bit of gossip now. And she's like, we're meant to be researching. And he's like, yeah, let me go do this other thing and not explain why I'm doing it. But you should know what I'm doing. And she's like, no, I don't understand. Can we organize ourselves and go do this thing together? And he's like, He acts like she should know stuff when he hasn't told her anything. He's actually smart. He actually has plans in place, but he doesn't let anyone know. Like Hal. He doesn't communicate that to anyone. He can be suave and winning to all the people, but has no skills to actually have a deeper connection and actually work as a functioning member of this research team. And he's like, oh, I actually really like you, Emily. And she's like, what? Sorry, shocked Pikachu face, or what? You what? And he's like, but it's okay, you don't have to like me back. I just want you to know, I'm really into you. And she's like, yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, it's so strange because he's like, yes, I like you, Emily, but also I'm going to ogle these other women right in front of you. And, like, I wasn't convinced he actually liked her. Like, he obviously is frustrated by her, but I don't understand what he's frustrated about. Because everything he was so frustrated about, I felt could have been solved if he just explained how he was working, rather than assuming everyone knows how he's working, which is very Hal-esque. Again, like with Hal, he grows on you in the weirdest way. You're like annoyed at him, but at the same time you're like, ah, the cute doofus. Don't know how to explain it, but other than Wendell Bambury may as well be Hal, book Hal. They're the one and the same. So in the end, because he doesn't explain anything, our beloved dearest girl, Emily, does a stupid decision and awakens this Ice King from a tree. And then the Ice King is like, yep, well, I guess I'm going to have to marry you, but also I don't really actually like you, but I'm going to brain. She's just mind dulled. And of course, then Wendell goes and tries to save her along with the villagers and blah, blah, blah. It's very quick, but very long at the end because she's kind of out of it, and you, of course, have her point of view, and she's just like a little out of it. She's like, okay, I'm getting wed. Oh, okay. Oh, Wendell's here. Hello, Wendell. Oh, also, very much like Hal, Wendell loves his clothes. And he's a fae, so he does, like, little, like, sews things. And, of course, it's, like, enchanted clothing. So he's a bit, like, he's got the skills of Sophie Hal. With her hat making, her clothes making. Oh, wow. But eventually, Wendell does save Thing, and they end up engaged, I think, by the end. It's all happiness in the end, but, oh, it was the strangest book. I was entertained, but thoroughly annoyed with most of the characters all the way through. It was the strangest experience I've ever had with a book. Wow. Heather Fawcett, Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia Fairies are 3.5 stars. A wild time. I'm kind of tired now. I feel like I've ranted about books for a while, so it's probably a long enough video. But I have been watching Vera, Person of Interest, and many play streams. I slowly became a play fan account because my heart is with these lads. Otherwise, K-pop. There were some really good releases this year, and I'll probably put it all on a playlist and then also have it so strong. Some of my very favorites. SF9's Bibora. Excellent start. It was like my first one to my playlist. I wasn't vibing with a lot of songs, but Bibora by SF9 definitely. Was Wait for Love this year? By Plave. Excellent song. That entire album was impeccable. I found a lot of like new groups that I haven't really listened to, but like one-off ones, like Beautiful Maze by Drippin', Somebody by Amos, and Sign, Happy End, of course, Earth, Wind and Fire by Boy Next Door. Ooh, Buy My Monster by On and Off. That is a classical masterpiece. It is so good. Apex, Youth to Youth. For some soloists, I Like the Way by Kim Woo Jin, Popcorn by D.O. More recently, we have Last Night by Jonghan and Wonu. I think that's the main ones. I'm sure there's a whole heap. And I haven't really been watching any K-dramas. So that is the first half of the year wrapped up with a little bow in it. Yeah, I know it wasn't very structured. There was no structure to this ranting. I might get more structured next semester. Who knows? Who knows? But I also will have, 78 books at least to review. So it might have to be a little different. But I enjoyed ranting to you. So thank you for being here. If you read any of these, or maybe have any thoughts for other videos, or your own reading Jenny, let me know below in the comments. So until next time, I hope 5 stars are plentiful, and I hope that your journey is relaxed and a little bit exciting at times. And until next time, bye-bye.
티니 로그